Oh, yes.
Welcome back, everyone. Today, I'm finally getting around to continuing the Retro Fantastic Four reviews, and in this case, we're looking at our Marvel Legends Mr. Fantastic from the Retro Wave. Now, this Mr. Fantastic toy is pretty interesting because he comes with two different stylings that you can display him with. He can either be in this lab coat that we see him packaged in, complete with, lab coat sleeves on his arms, or he can take the coat off, swap the arms out for his traditional blue uniform. So really, really neat touch. You can essentially have two figures in one here. And being the leader of the Fantastic Four, this is probably a figure that a lot of people will want to pick up. That being said, if you've seen my reviews before, you know how this goes. We're going to take a look at Mr. Fantastic's packaging, then we'll open it up. We're going to look at the figure itself, we'll check out his posability, his swappable accessories and all that. Naturally, I'll be doing some group shots and comparisons today. And then at the end of the video, I'll give my final thoughts. So our Reed Richards comes in the standard Retro Fantastic Four packaging. Include this little kind of circular cutout here for the Fantastic Four symbol. We get this very retro style drawing of the characters as if they're from like an old 80s or 90s cartoon, riding in on their jet. And then we get Mr. Fantastic himself. You get some artwork of him right here, again done up in that very kind of old animation styling. You get the figure, as I said, packaged with his lab coat, with his optional uniform arms right here, which also have his optional stretch-fingered hands, which obviously can be swapped around between the different arms. Now, on my copy, unfortunately, you can see that he's got this blue paint that's kind of trailed down on his arm. That's really unfortunate, and I should be able to remove that pretty safely. Hopefully I can get that off before I, get to the next part of this video. And, it's a bit of an eyesore, but nothing too bad. Could always return this too if I wanted to. So now we look on the back, and we get the extended artwork of Mr. Fantastic. This shows you that you can swap out his hands, and we get his name as well as some flavor text, and that just reads, "As Mr. Fantastic, Reed Richards utilizes his scientific brilliance and pliable form to make a difference in the world." That's definitely a much more optimistic look at Reed Richards, who has been kind of recast as a more morally gray character in recent years. But this is also a retro line, so this does harken back to the more idealistic form of the Fantastic Four. All right, and then down here we get our cross-sells. We get Mr. Fantastic, we get Thing, who I reviewed previously, Invisible Woman, Human Torch, Psycho Man, and the High Evolutionary. Now, something I didn't know when I reviewed the Thing is that there are actually several more releases that are part of this subline, and they're exclusive to Hasbro Pulse, so they're not listed here. And those are a clear variant of the Invisible Woman, so her, being invisible, a not completely flame-engulfed Human Torch, so just looks like Johnny Storm but with some flames on him. And then there's even a Doctor Doom figure who, unfortunately, is long since sold out. Doom's an incredibly popular character. It's one of, I think, the only two versions of Doctor Doom in his standard green outfit that you can get in Legends. So that one sold out a while ago. And, outside of paying a lot of money in the secondary market, it's really difficult to get a hold of that guy. So I do have the variants for these two, and I'll eventually, get around to reviewing them with this whole subline, this whole selection. Doom, I don't know if I'll obtain him in a timely enough manner to kind of include in this grouping of characters. I may just have to move on without him for the time being, or maybe even permanently if I can't find one for a decent price. So that is unfortunate. I am a bit of a completionist and would really like to have this whole, little subline here together, but we'll see. I'm not going to go pay like $100 for a $20 figure. All right, so yeah, the back, pretty cool. Definitely harkens back to our 90s toy lines with the stylings and, kind of simple diagrams and all that stuff. So yeah, an integral release in this wave because he is the leader of the team. He's a character most people are going to want to pick up, and he comes with a fair amount of cool accessories. Now we get Reed out of the package. We can see his extra arms over here, the extra extended hands over there, and, fairly simple figure, but very nice looking. I love the raised eyebrow here. It gives him that very smug, like inquisitive look that just really works for the character. You got his token gray sideburns there, got a little bit of hair just coming down over his forehead. Really nice sculpt. Really dig it. As far as the posability, he's got a ball joint and hinge combo for the neck. Got universal shoulders for both sets of arms, bicep swivel, double bend elbows, and universal wrists. He also has a ratcheted ab crunch, a ratcheted waist swivel, universal hips that are limited with the lab coat on a little bit, but once he takes that off, they get their full range of motion. He's got thigh swivels, he's got his double bend knees, and rocking and rotating ankles. Now this ankle in my copy is a little harder to do the rock on. It's like a much tighter ratchet for whatever reason, but that's pretty standard. I always have like one ankle or one knee or one elbow that just doesn't want to play ball very well. Kind of annoying, but nothing I can't really get past. So, really nice looking. This just shows Reed kind of in his natural environment of, being a scientist and always working on some sort of experiment or study. And now his extra hands are naturally compatible with either set of arms. So if you want to have Reed, demonstrating his powers with the lab coat on, you can do that. Now, I've noticed that the white of the hands really doesn't match the white of the lab coat, but it does match the white of his costume, so it kind of works. So yeah, you can have him, maybe reaching for a beaker or something, right? If you have some nice little display, some little setup here, you can display him reaching out for some sort of a test tube or something. Kind of neat little touch there. So we can do that, right? We can have him in his lab coat, or what you can do is pop his arms off, and they do come off pretty easily. They kind of planned this out and made sure you weren't going to break your toy getting this off. And you just slide the main portion of the lab coat off, put his blue arms on here. Let's go ahead and give him some hands. Doesn't matter which ones. I'll choose the ones that aren't currently in use. And here you go. Our more classic Mr. Fantastic, aka Reed Richards. Now this takes me back. Like, this is the Mr. Fantastic that I grew up with. And he's very, very, I'll say more heroic looking than what we're used to nowadays with Reed. I also just noticed that it appears that his the front piece of his chest and the back piece are two different plastic colors. And you can tell by the more bluish color of the white around the neck here. This is blue plastic with white paint, and then this is white plastic with blue paint. So that's unfortunate. I wish they would have cast both halves out of the same plastic color, because now you get this weird color matching issue. It's not the worst thing ever, but it is pretty obvious. Oh, you can see I actually managed to get that extra paint off his arm too, so that's nice. So, he does look good. This is his more classic styling, kind of the uniform he was introduced in, the whole clean-shaven look that makes him look a bit more heroic than our more amoral and self-obsessed Reed Richards. And overall, I like it. He poses well. He's got several different display options. Now, I do wish I had the more modern take on him, because there was a Fantastic Four wave previously that had the characters in the more recent get-ups and looks. I don't have that, sadly. I think it was like a Walgreens exclusive here in the States, so it's not like it's going to be easy to get a hold of. I would love to compare the two, so maybe one day I'll get that one and use this guy for a comparison shot. But even if I don't end up getting that one, I'm still pretty satisfied with this right here. Here's a group shot with Thing, the only other member of this team I've opened so far. And it's funny seeing these two together, because these are both being sold for the same price, right? They're both your $24-ish, despite the fact that Thing just is far more massive and large, and just, honestly, he costs more to produce than Reed here. I mean, Reed recycles a pretty darn common, male superhero buck for just about all of his body. Even the lab coat, I'm sure, isn't anything special. So, huge budget difference between these two. But at the same time, you don't have to do all that much different with Mr. Fantastic, because he is just a guy, just an adult human male, and he doesn't look too much different from the other adult human males. Whereas old Ben here strikes a very, very unique visage, so they don't really have any choice but to really go all out and give him a lot of his own tooling. That could explain why a lot of the figures in this wave are, pretty simple in design. It's just a lot of the budget went into this guy. And we know that when Hasbro plans out a budget, they plan out for an entire wave, not just figure by figure. So I imagine that some of the other toys in this wave are going to be, pretty skimpy when it comes to things like accessories and all that. But as long as they come with enough to make it feel like, they're a unique, special, interesting character, I won't mind it too much. Because when you do end up collecting an entire wave, you kind of get your money's worth spread out across the wave, so it ends up being a pretty decent deal. And this completes our look at the new Retro Mr. Fantastic. I have to say, I really am impressed with this toy. Even though it's not the most complex thing out there, the fact that he does come with a removable coat and a whole extra set of arms is pretty impressive. Extra arms are not something you get every day, right? Like, extra hands, extra heads, that's pretty par for the course with Legends, but entire limbs, that does not happen often. So I am impressed that they went through the trouble of, giving him 2 pairs of arms so he can have either the lab coat look or the no lab coat look. A lot of the times you're just kind of stuck with wearing the jacket, because even if you can get it off, their sleeves are still the jacket sleeves, so I like that they did that. The only other time I've seen this that I can recall is the Moira McTaggart figure from the, I think, Tri-Sentinel wave. So it's a nice practice, and I appreciate seeing it come back. So as far as like a quintessential Reed Richards, I think if you're more of a classic purist, I think this is the one you want. He'll probably scratch that nostalgic itch more than the more modern version that was released, I think, again at Walgreens. But either one can really work, just depending on what you're going for. More idealistic approach, or a grittier, more potentially kind of evil Reed Richards. But for me, just enjoying reliving the 90s a little bit, I don't mind this. It really harkens back to the old cartoon, and I think it does a great job at portraying that version of the character. So if you do pick this guy up, which you could probably get him on sale, this wave unfortunately didn't seem to be the most popular thing, and I can see a lot of the figures going up for sale in a lot of places, unlike maybe like the retro Spider-Man wave. And it could just be that Fantastic Four, it just doesn't have the mainstream appeal that Spider-Man does. Like, it was never the biggest thing for most casual Marvel fans. I remember their cartoon, out of all the different 90s Marvel cartoons, was not the one I was most interested in watching. I was real big on the Spider-Man and X-Men stuff. And, Fantastic Four kind of fell to the wayside for me as a kid. So I can understand why maybe this wave didn't do as well as Spider-Man. But for the people that are more, I guess, into Marvel as a whole, and especially the history of the brand, recognize Marvel's first family as kind of must-haves in their collection. So if you can pick him up, especially on clearance, I think he's well worth it, and I think you'll be very happy with what you get, because he comes with a lot of great stuff. Of course, that is just how I feel about Reed. So now I want to know what you all think of this toy. Do you think this is a really good representation of the character? Do you think that the whole lab coat thing is a nice gimmick, or would you rather see the budget go somewhere else, maybe more extended limbs or something like that? Any and all feedback is always welcome in the comments section. If you enjoyed this review, make sure to toss it a like. Let YouTube know you want to see more stuff like this. If you do want to see more like this, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you always get a heads up when I post something new. I thank you for joining me for this look at the new Marvel Legends Retro Fantastic Four, Mr. Fantastic. And with all that said, I will see you next time.